here at Grand Prix Portland. One more time with feeling. Here we are in the semifinals of Grand Prix Portland. Robert Santana with John Delirium. He's facing off against Tanner Von Difloe with Bant Company. And both players have Evolving Wilds to start off the game.
Yeah, so Robert gets to be on the play here. Very important whenever Bant Company is involved.
And very exciting every time the 6th seed gets to be on the play.
Yeah. He could very well get to be on the play for the finals, too, as the 8th seed is still alive in Max Mick on the other side of the bracket.
So plays a swamp, passes the turn, and now Tanner. Now that we're in the non-timed rounds, you see the players taking a little bit more time with their Evolving Wilds. During the Swiss, it seemed like most of the rounds were getting really close to the time limit. Lots of shortcuts got put in place to deal with Evolving Wilds and having to search at the end of your opponent's turn.
If I've learned one thing this weekend, it's if you understand a tournament, you got to be aware of the clock because these matchups can go long. Robert Santana, I think, representing Grapple from the past here. That has been a bit of a sleeper card from Eldritch Moon. Nobody really named it among the very best cards in Standard, but it's great in these Delirium decks. You sort of use it as an early anticipate, and you get to fill your graveyard just as a bonus.
So here's Nissa Vestwood Seer following Jace Vryn's Prodigy from Tanner Von Difloe. Not the most electric start for the Bant deck.
No, but Jace is powerful, and especially with Tanner having taken a mulligan, it can help smooth his draw and make sure that he's able to get lands and creatures into play in a timely fashion.
Yeah, you see him pitching a Dromica's Command to Jace. He's got more in hand if he needs them.
So Plains Forest Island, pretty smooth start for him. Perhaps passing the turn with Spell Queller here.
Now, if he attacks with the Nissa, do you consider just ambushing with the Spell Queller here?
I would certainly consider it. I would be tempted. It's very likely in Jund colors that Santana could have an instant speed removal spell.
How about Distended Mindbender here on turn 4?
So this is one of the best starts that Santana's deck is capable of. Turn 3 Nissa, you get your value up front by searching for a forest. Turn 4, Distended Mindbender, tear apart the opponent's hand, get a 5/5. Wow, and he actually gets to hit 2 cards with it.
And he's like, all right, I'll just put this Collected Company away. What do you want now? 2 Spell Quellers, a Reflector Mage, and a Dromica's Command. Wow.
So he takes Reflector Mage and makes sure his 5/5 is going to stay on the battlefield. The saving grace for Tanner here is there are now 4 cards in the graveyard, so if he finds a 4th untapped land, he can transform his Jace, use that to flashback Collected Company, and still get a bit of value. But this is certainly a good start for Robert.
Yeah, and Tanner's like, I'm going to need to start changing my battle plan here. And now in comes Spell Queller.
So it looks like all Tanner could come up with is Evolving Wilds as a land drop here, so he's going to have to be patient on flashing back the company.
And he's like, Dromica's Command is not going to get the job done here.
Nope, not against a 5/5. Not at this stage of the game.
He's like, besides, I can flash him back if I need him. Transforms into Telepath Unbound. In comes the Flyer. 18 all. Shrink down your Distended Mindbender. Give it the -2 and pass the turn. Needs a whole turn cycle to get his Evolving Wilds racked up here.
Yep. So remember, Tanner has Spell Queller here, and Robert knows about it from the Distended Mindbender last turn, so he's going to be very wary or calculated in what spell he casts this turn, knowing that Tanner would really love to use his mana to snatch a spell out of the air.
looks like he's going to offer him either a vessel or a traverse here. Says, would you like to counter or traverse the Ovenwald?
Yeah, Traverse can only get a basic land here, and I like that Tanner's letting it resolve, because basic land, not so threatening, but if he does put the Traverse under the Spell Queller, later in the game it could come back to bite him and get a nasty creature for Robert.
All right, it could just suddenly turn out to be Spell Queller was hatching an Emrakul.
Right.
Goes and gets a mountain. And passes a turn. He's pretty happy with racing his creature against Jace here.
And I wonder if we'll see Tanner flash in the Spell Queller and untap and go ahead and cash in the Jace for Collected Company. No, he's going to be more patient than that.
Yeah, are they doing a little bit of a dance here? He's like, well, he obviously wanted me to Spell Quell that.
Mm-hmm.
He must have something good, so now I want to hold on to my Spell Queller.
Yeah, great point. There's definitely the mental game aspect of things.
So, but I guess if you're going to Collected Company,
Might also be that Tanner just wants to hedge his bets a little bit against Languish. He knew he was going to have to use Collected Company in his own main phase, so didn't want to put perhaps a fourth creature
sure,
vulnerable to Languish.
So in comes Spell Queller. Collected Company finds a Selfless Spirit and a Jace, and now grapple with the past.
Yeah, so there's the grapple that Robert either didn't have or chose not to cast on turn 2. It is definitely a card that you would sometimes have and choose not to use because it gets more powerful as the game goes on, both because your graveyard gets filled with goodies and because you know a little bit more what you're looking for as the game progresses.
And he's going to bring back Anissa here.
So if Robert has Languish this turn, it's going to be a huge swing because that's going to wipe up Tanner's creatures and leave Robert with a 5/5 as the only creature on the battlefield.
How many languages does he play in his main deck? He does play 3, right?
Yeah, 3 copies of Languish in the main deck to go with his 3 Kozilek's Return.
So Selfless Spirit just jumps in the way of a Distended Mindbender.
Yeah, I wonder why. That's a very conservative block from Tanner, protecting his life total here.
And then he sensed that there was a Languish, and now the Languish gets the Distended Mindbender.
Yeah, he must have just known somehow that Languish was in Robert's hand. I mean, really, really well navigated by Tanner if he was 100% sure the Languish was there. I'm impressed.
Now he gets to untap and deploy 2 Duskwatch Recruiters. It does look like that there is another Languish in Robert Santana's hand here. He's going to play Nissa. He's going to go get his 7th land.
Yep, and that'll transform so
Yeah.
so as to not be vulnerable to the Languish.
He's going to get the Sage Animist.
And the Descended Mindbender actually died to the Languish because of Tanner's block.
Yeah.
So that was a really masterful play.
Of course, as Stephen King taught us, sometimes they come back. And now we see a 4/4 enter the battlefield for Robert Santana after Languish cleans up those pesky recruiters. He also dispatched a recruiter last round.
Yep.
So here we see him sorting through his graveyard. While Tanner goes and finds a forest with his Nissa Vastwood Seer. But still a couple turns away from having to worry about it transforming. All right. Tick up.
There's
Find a languish.
the third languish.
That is all the languishes, sir. These players have seen each other's deck lists at this point, so.
Yeah, so there are no surprises here.
Is that to the slaughter?
Yep, so that takes out Nissa.
So that's like a diabolic edict type effect. Got to sacrifice creature.
Mm-hmm.
Would have also had to sacrifice a planeswalker if he had both. Delirium well in hand here. Oh,
Wow.
there is a distended mindbender for Santana.
Yep, so if Santana casts that, we'll all get to see what Tanner is working with. We know about the Spell Queller from earlier, and we know he probably doesn't have lands in hand since he's been missing land drops.
Right. Funny thing is, he can. I like the thing we've seen now with people sacrificing a token to reduce the cost of their emerged creatures by 1.
Make it cost 7 instead of 8.
But he passes the turn, and Spell Queller comes down. But there's another to the slaughter in hand for Santana, and he's able to take care of that before Difloe gets to untap.
Yeah, that's big because it protects the Nissa. Man, we've seen a lot of transformed Nissas
Yeah, absolutely.
in this Grand Prix. They seem to just be in every deck.
I feel like this is the most we've seen people play in their decks too. I remember when you'd see 1, you'd see maybe 2, but really people just jamming is almost sometimes all 4.
Yeah, I actually did build a lot of decks with the full 4 Nissa Vastwood Seers in Pro Tour testing because it's just such a great card in general and such a great body for Emerge.
Yeah, which is what we saw. I mean, you saw the turn 4 Distended Mindbender from Santana this game. It was just backbreaking.
Yeah, then he returned the Nissa to his hand with Grapple with the Past, and there it is now.
And here's a Languish. Just he's not interested in letting Tanner transform his Planeswalker.
Yeah, both players playing very patiently, very conservatively. Robert Santana is willing to lose his own 4/4 token in exchange to not let Tanner get a Planeswalker into play. Robert knows he's ahead and just wants to keep as few variables as possible. Tanner, likewise, anticipates that Robert is going to have to cast Languish sooner or later, and he's being conservative in terms of not deploying too many creatures.
Plays Tireless Tracker, drops a land, and puts another potential card onto the table in the form of a clue.
Yep. So 1 card in hand, 4 mana open. We see a Collected Company on the table. That's exiled from a Jace activation earlier.
And that was the one that got distended mindbended, or mind bent. All right. Says fine. I'll send in my token. Happily trade a non-actual card for your card.
And we don't often see the Bant player down to 2 life.
Wow.
But Robert's had the right answers at the right stages of this game.
So as Tanner goes to sacrifice a clue.
Wow.
Fiery Impulse is attempted to be countered with Dromica's command, but then a second Fiery Impulse finishes off the Tireless Tracker. And there it looks like another Spell Queller in hand.
Yeah, so Tanner's last card had been the Dromoka's command. Then he got a fresh draw from the clue and a fresh draw from his draw step. But I'm not sure if he found anything to save him from that Ashaya.
Yep, Spell Queller comes down on chump blocking duty. It just jumps in the way, dies, and does not trade with the token. Free card, free land off the top for Santana, thanks to Jace the Janimist. And now we're going to see Liliana Last Hope. And anything for him to get back from his yard. And he does have a Distended Mindbender.
Right. That was killed by Languish and Chump blocking.
has to decide if he wants to just tick it up or get a yield a card from it for sure in the form of a creature in his graveyard.
Yeah, and he still has an extended Mindbender in hand, which he can either hard cast or he has an extra copy of Nissa that he could emerge with.
Yep, he just hard casts it, ticks up Liliana. He sees a land in hand. Tanner shows him, yeah, I drew another one after that too. On to game 2. Robert Santana up 1-0 here in the semifinals. A finish already beyond his expectations coming to this tournament.
Yeah.
And Tanner Von Difloe, he's got a little bit of a hill to climb now.
Yeah, I thought Tanner Von Difloe played that game very well, but the odds were just stacked against him. Robert had the right answers for everything Tanner was able to put into play. Turn 4, extended Mindbender on the play is hard to beat.
It was like the anti-collected company, right? Like it's so used to like Tanner on turn 4 just collected companying into like 2 creatures, like, and getting some advantage on the board. And this was just like, on turn 4 I've got something that I'd like to do, and I'm actually just going to take 2 cards away from you. All right, we're looking in here in the middle of game 1 between 14-year-old Max Mick playing Bant Company against older than 14 Travis Wu. Travis Wu is playing Black-White Planeswalkers, and there you see Oath of Liliana, Ob Nixilis, Liliana, and a zombie token. That zombie token yielded by Oath of Liliana.
Yep. So we know that so far the Oath of Liliana has been at least a gatekeeper of Malakir. Perhaps we'll wind up putting more zombies into play.
Max Mick attacks with a Lumbering Falls, and Travis Wu, quote-unquote, takes it. Mm-hmm. And he didn't realize the little bonus from the Sylvan Advocate on the creature land meant that Liliana would die. Not that he had any real options there.
Yeah, so we must be pretty deep into the game. Tons of lands in play for Max Mick. And that was a big turn for him. He started with no creatures, but he was able to use Reflector Mage to kill Travis's zombie token, use Sylvan Advocate to pump up his Lumbering Falls, and send that in to knock Travis's 2 Planeswalkers back down to 1.
You see a Tireless Tracker in his graveyard, so possibly that's where all those cards came in hand that he wasn't able to cast them the turn before.
Yeah. So, boy, when we first tuned in, it looked like things were going great for Travis, multiple Planeswalkers in play, but it actually looks like he is down on cards in this game, and it's certainly not over, but he's going to have to do some work.
All right, well, he's drawn a card with Ob Nixilis. He's not afraid to do the painful work, because he's also going to read the bones in his hand.
And you can see him cutting his lands in a way that indicates Ruinous Path with Awaken. He also has the option to cast Read the Bones, digging for maybe multiple answer cards or a Planeswalker to trigger the Oath of Liliana.
He decides to go with the Read the Bones. He awakens his Shambling Vent, which is huge if he animates that Shambling Vent and attacks.
Yeah, that'll make it a 6/7 lifelink. I like that play, getting the Sylvan Advocate off the table. That Advocate alone was just representing too much power and toughness because of the multiple Lumbering Falls on Max Mick's side of the table. Animating Shambling Vent is always a bit of a gamble because, first of all, if it dies in combat or to Dromoka's Command or something, then you're down one of your better lands. And second, if it gets Reflector Maged, then you have an enters the battlefield tapped land. However, as you mentioned, the upside is also very high if a few turns down the road Travis is willing to invest the mana, activate it, get a 6/7 lifelink.
So Max starts. There's a lot of land rearranging that goes on in this standard format. So there we see a Selfless Spirit. Now we see 2 Shambling Vents being animated. And we see, Lumbering Falls being animated. And Lumbering Falls, and Reflector Mage look like they're all coming at Ob Nixilis here.
Yeah, Max Mick really valuing the ability to get Ob Nixilis off the table, even willing to cash in a Lumbering Falls for it. Reflector Mage attacked Travis, which is a great play because 2 3/3s attacking Ob Nixilis ensures that it's going to die. And Travis actually opted to kill a Lumbering Falls rather than protect his own life total. So just a land and a checklist card in Max Mix hand. I wonder if it's an Archangel Avacyn. Could also be Jace, Nissa, Duskwatch Recruiter. I can't tell. Travis has Read the Bones and a Languish. That's the reason that he animated Shambling Venice, because he wanted his Awakened land to be able to live through the Languish. So now that I understand that, it's great forethought on Travis's part.
So he attacks, animates the land. Nice swing there. So what happens is when you animate a land that's awakened, it becomes its base power and toughness, and then gets the modifier from those +1/+1 counters.
Yes, exactly.
So, okay, we're gonna we're still in game one here, so we got a little while to go. Let's keep an eye on our feature table here. Robert Santana, John Delirium versus Tanner Von Difloe with Band Company, and we have a transformed Duskwatch Recruiter already getting in here.
Yeah, so on the creature front, Tanner Von Difloe is doing great. He is already a transformed werewolf. On the land front, not so hot, because it looked like he had to pass turn 3 without a land drop.
Oops. And there is the mighty Pilgrim's Eye from Robert Santana.
Yeah, not very mighty now, but if it becomes a distended Mindbender next turn, then Robert certainly won't complain. Oh.
And it would actually single-handedly give him Delirium.
That's right. Good point.
You know, because he's got two card types in there right now. And if he can get that Pilgrim's Eye into his yard, he goes to 4 types because he gets Artifact and Creature. Still mana tight here for Von Difloe, who plays a Sylvan Advocate.
Yeah, that should actually only cost him
I
1
was just
mana.
going to say overpays for a Sylvan Advocate. I think we might see it, because here comes the Pilgrim's Eye. And yes, we are.
Yeah, turn 4 both times.
Again. Can't quite see his hand here.
I see a Declaration in Stone, which I think we can predict that's going to be the cheap card that Robert chooses.
2 copies of Collected Company.
And a Tameo Field Researcher. So yeah, I'd be inclined to take Declaration in Stone, and I don't know which of the 4 mana spells. They're all terrifying if Tanner's able to get that much mana. Taking 1 Collected Company makes sense.
All right, so Tanner passes the turn down. He's down to 12. So Tanner's been able to do a considerable amount of work with his small amount of creatures, but he passes the turn, transforms his Duskwatch Recruiter, hasn't even been able to activate them.
And Robert Santana is starting to taste a finals appearance here. He's just trying to be careful, make sure he doesn't blow it, leave any room for Tanner to get back into this game.
Okay, here comes Pilgrim's Eye, number 2. And he's been very precise. You hear him announcing all his triggers, just touching things and just sort of making sure he's being very clear about what he's doing at every turn.
That's great. It's so important in this standard format, being really careful about all the triggers, all the order that things are happening in, being aware of both graveyards and not mistapping for your Emrakuls or casting your Delirium spells without Delirium.
Land, passes the turn back to Tanner.
So he's content to just make his land drop, sit behind that 5/5 ground creature. Tanner can't do much until he hits his 4th land.
Tanner could play an Avacyn this turn, but I don't think we said he doesn't play that.
Wow, that he could play an Avacyn. That's impressive. And now what you mentioned a second ago, the Pilgrim's Eye single-handedly giving Robert Santana Delirium. He found Ishkana.
Oh, wow, look at that. 3 cards, 4 types, 3 Spider Babies. It also has a red showing in to represent maybe a Fiery Impulse or something.
Mm-hmm.
And in comes. It's time. It's time for Pilgrim's Eye to swing. This is your moment to shine, Pilgrim's Eye. gets in there.
Oh, torturous Tanner drew another 4-mana card in Summary Dismissal. Normally great in this matchup, but not what he's looking for now.
Duskwatch Recruiter number 3. If he doesn't draw lane soon, that's going to transform pretty quickly as well.
Brian, I wonder if you're going to finally get your wish here.
It's like you can read my mind, Reed Duke. Is that what your first name stands for? Wow. Yeah.
That of course, being the multiple back-to-back activations of Ishkana Graph Widow.
He's going to need another mana to do it, but I think he has that in his hand. It looks like he had a few lands there.
Yeah, he does. And sitting behind a stalled board like this against an opponent who's stuck on lands, it's not that far-fetched.
Well, he can do 5 a turn, right? I mean, there's nothing stopping his Pilgrim's Eye from getting in, although he has to respect a Spell Queller with 2 mana up. They're just checking his Delirium. He's like, that counts as 2. There you go. Wow. Attacking with everybody. He's like, I don't feel like being patient and activating my Ishkana.
Yeah, conceptually, it's a good move to want to push the action against an opponent who's drawing out of a mana screw. Playing a long, fair game under those circumstances means that your opponent's going to, by definition, have a stacked hand once they find their lands.
So everything piles in front of Ishkana Graph Widow, I believe. Maybe it's piling in front of the Distended Mindbender, but I think it's the Graph Widow.
I think so, too. I think Tanner's respecting an instant speed removal spell, triple blocking when a double block might ordinarily get the job done because he doesn't want to get blown out by a Fiery Impulse or a, well, I guess not Fiery Impulse, but Grasp of Darkness, something along those lines.
No. It was actually the Distended Mindbender. Okay. The Sylvan Advocate goes down. Here is Nissa Vastwood Seer, like it always is. He's like, would you like to spell quell this? Oh. There is the 7th land, so he's going to transform into the Sage Animist. What do you do here? Add a 4/4 to the board or go digging for a card?
Well, you know, the aggressive attack, letting all his creatures become tapped, indicates he's got some kind of spell to follow up here in Kozilek's Return. So that's going to wipe up a bunch of Santana's own creatures, but it's also going to take out 2 Duskwatch Recruiters. Now, one cool play that Robert had available to him this turn, if he wanted it, was he could have cast Kozilek's Return before damage after Tanner triple blocked. Then all the creatures would have had 2 damage on them already, and he could just assign 1/1/1 with Distended Mindbender. It would have cost him 4 damage to Tanner because the unblocked creatures would have died before dealing damage.
Right.
But it would have gotten the extra Kralin Horde Howler off the table.
Okay, Duskwatch Recruiter turns back face up with 2 spells cast this turn, and Nissa comes down, finds a 4th land, and Tanner cannot attack Sage Animist fast enough here with his Recruiter.
Uh-oh, looks like another Kozilek's Return.
Yep.
Going to leave Tanner with nothing. He's finally hit his 4th land, so he can rebuild quickly with the Collected Company. But he's starting from a huge deficit here.
Yeah, he's at 8.
Wow.
Look at that. Dragon Master Outcast. It's going to be turned on here. That means every turn that lives, Robert Santana is going to be making a 5/5 dragon on his upkeep.
So I predict we're going to see a main phase Desperation Collected Company. Nope.
No.
It's going to let Robert make a dragon.
Right, you're thinking you want to Collected Company into a Reflector Mage there and not let that start to get out of hand on the board.
Yeah, although this might be just as good. An end of turn Reflector Mage can at least get rid of the dragon token. It won't stop the Dragon Master Outcast from doing its thing, but it might be just as good.
Another Ishkana off the Sage Animist.
Yeah, 3 copies of that legend in Robert's main deck, and doesn't look like he's sideboarded out any. I think it's really important against Bant Company to stabilize the board, especially post sideboard. It's a nice sweet spot of getting around both negate and spell queller in a 5-mana creature.
Yes, the mechanic of cost 5 or more.
Mm-hmm.
Very important in this post spell queller world. Looks like we're just going to untap our spider. Make some more spiders, and now...
And now, with Tanner at just 5 life, activation of Ishkana becomes a big threat.
And Selfless Spirit and Tireless Tracker for Tanner Von Difloe off of that collected company that he has waited a very long time to cast. He does have Tamiyo in hand, and he drew a Reflector Mage.
Yeah, so I think priority number 1 is to make sure that that dragon cannot connect in combat. He can either use Reflector Mage or he can try to block it. He could also use Tamiyo to tap it down. But if he takes a hit from a dragon, that's lethal all on its own. Past that, he needs to think about how to answer the Dragon Master, Outcast, and the Ishkana before he can start getting back in this game.
Wow. Robert Santana's deck just firing on all cylinders here.
Yeah. Saw a turn 4 Distended Mindbender both games.
Finds an Evolving Wild off of activating Nissa Sage Animist. It looks like he's considering just sending in spiders and dragon.
Yeah, so that's 5 attackers. If he's open to using the 7-mana activation of Ishkana to put Tanner to 1, that means Tanner has to answer all 5 attackers.
Does find a Spell Queller, does find a Tireless Tracker. I don't know if there's anything else in his collected company assortment here. And that won't be enough.
No, I think his best bet is put Selfless Spirit on the dragon, block some of the spiders, and just hope that Robert Santana is not used to activating Ishkana with his deck. It doesn't see the play.
Okay, so Nissa Vastwood Seer and Spell Queller join the party. Tanner shuffles his collected company rejects back into his deck as he searches for a forest. Now, go to blocks. So Santana can spend 7 mana to deal 4 damage to Tanner. And if 1 token gets through, so it looks like Tanner's trying to double block the spider. I think he showed him. He said, look, I'm just going to activate. I mean, it would have been nice if they actually activated it for us. But I get that we're being expedient here. Congratulations to Robert Santana. John Delirium is through to the finals. 2-0 over Tanner Von Difloe. And congratulations to Tanner. Great showing here by him this weekend. It's only his 2nd loss of the entire tournament.
Yeah. So both these players coming in to day 2, not really having high hopes for top 8, made it this far, and Santana onto the finals.
Yeah, and 1 Bant Company deck down. So I don't know, where people feel on the beat 'em or join 'em scale of things, but I know a few beat 'em people who are pretty happy right there.
Robert Santana's been beating them all day. Congratulations to him, and congratulations to you too, Brian, on seeing an Ishkana Graph Widow activation win
an implied activation.
Mm-hmm.
It's like virtual activation. Okay, here we see Max Mick resolving a collected company, rather frustratingly, only getting a Sylvan Advocate.
And it does look like Travis Wu was able to stabilize and win the first game against the lumbering falls of Max Mick.
There we see Obnixless getting to work here, up to 6.
So if Travis has his way, this could be the very last game that Bant Company gets to play in Grand Prix Portland.
So, but once again, Obnixless falls to Sylvan Advocate and an animated Lumbering falls.
Mm-hmm. But you know what? Obnixless did his job there. He gave Travis a card and prevented 9 damage to his life total.
So read the bones for Travis Wu. He's going to fall to 10 here.
So he's thinking hard about these 2 cards that he's looking at. He's not exactly in a desperate situation, but he has to worry a lot about his life total, and Max Mick still has a full hand.
And 2 clues on the table.
And 2 clues, yeah.
Yeah. Trying to get a look. I think I see a Gideon there.
Right, he has a Gideon in hand already. We can't see the cards that he's looking at with the scry. Oh, he draws them both. And that was...
Like, I'm assuming that was a Ruinous Path.
Yeah, Ruinous Path, Murder. It could have been Anguished Unmaking, but I hope for Travis's sake that he has the extra 3 life points here.
Fist full of cards for Max Mick, including another collected company. Plays a Sylvan Advocate.
Yeah, and passes the turn without attacking the 5/5 Lumbering Falls, which is mixed news for Travis. He's like, well, at least I didn't take 5 damage, but oh, you have something better to do with your mana.
And I'm sure after 2 full days of playing in this tournament, Travis knows full well what that is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, here is a land. Looks like Kalatas and Gideon in hand for Travis Wu.
And I like this sequencing here from Travis. He, if he's going to play these 2 spells, this is the right order to do it, because if he played Kalitas, then cast Gideon, Max Mick could company in response and have access to either Reflector Mage or Spell Queller as a devastating card.
All right, here we go now. Collected company, spin the wheel, Max Mick. What do we got?
Yeah, he actually maybe should have cast Kalitas before activating the Gideon for that reason, too.
So there's a Reflector Mage. It's going to bounce the token. But again, a somewhat disappointing collected company. Do you find that happens sometimes after sideboarding?
Yeah, it's much more common after sideboarding. I think Max Mick probably brought in a bunch of counter spells, a bunch of non-creature
Wow, another
cards.
Reflector Mage. Animate my Lumbering Falls. Attack you. That is enough for Max Mick to force a Game 3 here in the semifinals against Travis Wu. You see a little wince from Travis Wu. He's like...
Yeah, Bant's not out of it yet.
He's black. A deck like this, these decks walk on a razor. You always feel like there's something you could have done slightly differently. There's so many decisions that you need to make. We see the players as they get ready for this final game. Final game for one of them of the tournament.
Yeah, 14-year-old Max Mick versus longtime Magic personality Travis Wu. Both trying to make the finals of Grand Prix Portland here. Travis has been the last surviving black-white player in the tournament for many rounds now.
Oh, yeah,
we didn't
absolutely.
really see a lot of black-white. Just walking around, I saw one player playing at, I think it was 9-1 or something like that early in the day today, but really not a lot of black-white at the top of the tables.
No, and a lot of Travis Wu's guys, you know, people that he, like I guess his team were on the deck, you know, and they really felt like it was a great choice for this weekend. See the players having a nice conversation. Back shrug, sure. Hey, yeah, black white's kind of sweet.
Mm-hmm.
It's no bank company.
Yeah. How many creatures can you put into play in the first 4 turns?
And just try to visualize. You ever try to visualize your opening hand? You're like, this is what I want to see.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Max, I just want to see 2-drop, 3-drop. Something to do on turn 4. What is Travis visualizing? What does his opening hand look like? What does he want to see with a black-white deck? We know at this point what the Band Company deck wants to do.
So I think Travis, his ideal opening hand involves plenty of mana and plenty of early defense, and his expensive planeswalkers, those can fall into place later in the game when he's ready for them. He doesn't need to see Ob Nixilis or Sorin in his opening hand. Perfect opening hand is just a couple lands, couple removal spells, maybe a Read the Bones to smooth things out. But his priority number 1 in the early game is defense. Don't fall behind on the board. Don't let your life total get too low.
So how many sweepers does he have in his deck?
In the main deck, Travis has 3 Languishes and 1 Planar Outburst. Planar Outburst, not a card we see all the time, but it's I think quite powerful. It's excellent against Emrakul because even if the opponent's taking your turn, there's no other way to read Planar Outburst except that it kills Emrakul.
So
Travis also has a 4th Languish in the sideboard and a 2nd Planar Outburst, so he is well prepared for creature swarms.
So just to give you an idea, a little bit of perspective. When I talked to Max, he's only been playing Magic for 4 years.
Okay.
He's been only playing competitively for about a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
He's been traveling to GPs, PTQs, trying to get himself onto the Pro Tour. Travis Wu, 2 Grand Prix top 8s, both of them before Max Mick ever picked up a Magic card.
Wow.
So, he Oakland 2013 and 2010, both Grand Prix Oaklands. It looks like.
Really?
Yeah.
No kidding.
All right. Max Mick says, no. This is not what I want for Game 3.
Well, this is as good a start to the game as Travis could hope for. He gets to be on the play, and for a very grindy black-white deck where you're looking to trade 1 for 1 a lot, a mulligan is especially costly for the opponent.
It looks like Max has asked the judge to shuffle for him.
Interesting.
Or maybe a card flipped over, or he wanted him to just make sure everything was okay. But handed the deck off to a judge for a second.
So one question that I'm curious to find out the answer to is how much discard does Travis Wu like to have in this matchup after sideboarding? I think Duress and Transgress the Mind are both cards that you could reasonably have in your deck against Bant Company after sideboard, or reasonably not have in your deck against Bant Company after sideboard. 4 Transgress in the main deck, 3 Duress in the sideboard. That's a lot. That's about as much discard as you see in Standard these days.
Duress feels like it has a huge potential to whiff in the early game, though.
Yeah, so it's a double-edged sword because you want to be prepared for your opponent's counter spells. You don't want to let them set up to have an answer when you're casting your big Languish or Planar Outburst. However, if you dilute your deck too much by having too many Duresses, as you mentioned, you can miss. You can have bad top decks in the late game, and sometimes it'll make your controlling deck just not function the way it's supposed to in the late game if you have too much dead air like that.
Yeah, counters in Max Mix sideboard are Negate, Ojutai's Command, and Summary Dismissal.
Yeah, Summary Dismissal, unclear whether it'll come in this matchup. Counterspells are good, but 4 mana for what's just going to amount to basically a cancel is not very exciting.
Negate seems pretty exciting, though.
Yeah, Negate's great, especially if Travis feels that he has to lean heavily on board sweepers like Languish and Planar Outburst.
There's your Transgress the Mind, Reed.
Yep.
So
Transgress the Mind is great because it can take Ojutai's Command and is a lot less likely to miss just because of the ability to hit 3 mana creatures.
So what is he going to take here?
Can you tell what that
plenty of
checklist
options.
card is? It's either Jace or Nissa. I think it's Nissa.
Wooburg. It looks like it's the last one, so that would be a G. Max takes this opportunity to clean up his sleeves a little bit.
And what Travis takes here is going to depend a bit on his own hand. If he has no more discard spells, he's pretty likely to take Collected Company.
Can we get a little Windex there for Max?
Yeah.
Yeah, he is going to take the Collected Company.
Black-White deck is well prepared to deal with all of those creatures 1 for 1. But Collected Company, the best answer to it is a discard spell.
Yeah, Thalia not terribly scary for it. Most of his lands come into play tapped anyway. And here's a turn 3 Read the Bones. And boy, this is what Travis Wu wants when he's going to cast Read the Bones. Like, he's under no pressure here.
Yeah, exactly. A clean board. He just got to clear the way with a discard spell. Yeah, this is the start Travis was looking for. We're getting into the mid-game with him having a high life total and a safe board, so now his Planeswalkers are going to be at their best.
Now, Thalia Heretic Cathar comes down. Any number of ways for, Travis to interact with it. Oath of Liliana, a pretty sweet one here. Here comes.
Ooh, but 2 clues for Max Mix, so
Yeah.
great turn for him.
Just one of the. I've been so impressed with how this card has functioned in this deck, and it's always been good. But I think as the format slowed down, we talked about this a little bit earlier. You just have more and more opportunity for the games to go on for that card to really shine.
Yeah, absolutely. Tireless Tracker is just one of the most powerful creatures in Standard in its own right.
Here's Gideon,
which is going to make 2 2/2 tokens.
Yeah, we get a Night Ally token, and then the trigger from Oath of Liliana, you see, makes a 2/2 zombie token if a Planeswalker entered the battlefield into your control this turn.
Yeah, that's like Gideon's never looked better than when it gets to make 2 Grizzly Bear creatures on the first turn it comes into play.
There we see a negate for Max Mick. Gets a 3rd clue, and in comes Tireless Tracker. Do you just put both in front here and like force him to sacrifice his clue?
I would be very tempted to, and it means that you're going to get to kill the Tireless Tracker, no matter how much mana Max invests into it.
So he's going to choose to just invest 1 in here, and draws a card. Maybe he's like, maybe I'll draw Dromoka's Command. No, I didn't. Passes the turn back.
All Max can do is pass with negate mana available. Negate or clue mana.
So Obnixilus is going to draw a negate from his opponent. Yep. And that's exactly how it goes. He's like, don't reach for the dice.
Interestingly, Travis has a Transgress the Mind in hand. He could have seen if the coast was clear, but he could not have cleared the way because Transgress can't take negate away. So Max Mick on the back foot, trying to find a way to even up the board state and produce something that can challenge Travis Wu's Planeswalkers.
Wow, apparently on that attack, Wu went to just block with the knight, and Mick asked just that one, and then that gave Wu sort of pause to go, maybe both.
That's interesting. The power of suggestion can be used for good or evil in Magic.
Only 2 cards in hand for Max Mick. 2 cards on the table, though, too. Again, still in the form of the clue.
Of all the players we've seen in the top 8, Max Mick seems to be the most animated at the table. He's moving the fastest, shuffling his cards around.
Yeah, very talkative, too.
Yep.
There you see him get a Vastwood Seer. Plays a Thalia Heretic Cathar. Travis Wu plays a land.
So Thalia, not very good against the removal half of Travis's deck, but excellent against the Planeswalker half. For example, if Travis was to play something like a Gideon, not only would the Knight come into play tapped, but the Zombie also from Oath of Liliana would come into play tapped, giving Max a much more comfortable window to attack and kill the Planeswalkers.
Right, that's the reason the Oath is in there, is to create like this kind of shield wall out in front of the Planeswalkers. So now here's a Transgress the Mind. Sees Reflector Mage. Sees Tireless Tracker. Tough call what you take there.
Yeah, especially if he's unable to remove the Thalia from the battlefield, I would be inclined to take Reflector Mage, just to maximize the chance of actually getting to successfully protect your Planeswalker. But he takes Tireless Tracker. He wants to fight the card advantage battle more.
Maybe. He was thinking. That was a really tough call for him. You could tell he was like, both of these stink for me. Makes a second token, but Max reminds him that it comes into play tapped. Looks like he does have a Shambling Vent that he's going to be able to animate if he needs to protect.
Will be posted in about 30 seconds.
Quick check of the graveyard. Max should be able to take out that Gideon at this point.
Oh, but he transforms the Nissa first. He certainly doesn't want to trade off Nissa or attack it into Evolving Wild, or into Shambling Vent, rather. And Evolving Wilds, the draw, would have made Tireless Tracker pretty devastating if Travis had taken an alternative route.
So it's going to bounce the Knight token. Thalia is going to attack Gideon, and it is going to fall to what looks like a Grasp of Darkness.
Mm-hmm.
But could be an ultimate price. I can't see it's under his name. Okay, makes 4/4 elemental token. Fetches a land and sends the turn back to Travis, who now feels a lot more comfortable with Thalia off the table.
Yeah, this is where Travis wants to be. He is facing down a Nissa on the other side of the table, so that's something to worry about. He has the option to kill it by sending Gideon, Knight, and Shambling Vent at it, but that would be a costly play to make. And I think Travis has a second copy of Gideon in hand, so I wonder at what point he becomes interested in making an emblem. He can play a new Gideon, get a Knight, get a zombie, have them all be 3/3s if he casts in the first Gideon.
Seems good.
Yeah.
I have your phone.
The Mana Dance. Do you give up anything by sort of shifting around your mana when you're thinking about the different things you can do? Are you communicating too much to your opponent?
Yes. Yeah, you can definitely give information away that way.
Okay.
You can also do false tells in the same sense.
All right, so the elemental token gets taken out. Looked like that looked like an ultimate price. Went by pretty quickly. Ticks up on Gideon. And in.
Yeah, this is a cool play. I think I would have liked to see an emblem here, though, and then he could attack Nissa with 3/3 Knight token and 3/4 Shambling Vent.
Decides not to attack with the Knight ally. Leaves that back to block. Max puts his Nissa in the graveyard. But now he has the opportunity to... He cashes in a clue. Okay. Thought maybe he was going to animate a... Lumbering Falls. But no. Oh, there it is.
So sends both at the Gideon.
No.
Travis, I think, will chump block to protect the Gideon's loyalty.
He has another Gideon in hand, but maybe he's thinking about just fogging with the Gideon here. Leaves his Knight on board, Knight on the board. Yeah. So I'd rather be able to attack with my Knight next turn than have to then make a new Knight. here comes new Gideon. That means he gets a knight, he gets a zombie.
He not yet. He should only be getting at the zombie at the end of the turn.
Yeah, someone reminded him there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the more draconian days of Magic, that
I
would
was just thinking the same thing.
that would mean that Travis's turn is over. But the way the rules are enforced these days, there's a little more flexibility.
Do you have any fast effects, Reed? And Travis is fine passing the turn.
Yep. So he now has a well-protected Gideon.
Yeah, starts surrounding the castle. Dead up front, undead off to the right. Zombie and Night Ally. It just seems wrong.
Attention Magic players. Craig Hollander.
Well, that's what you get when you let Liliana join the Gatewatch.
Thank you.
I told you this was a bad idea. All right, here we go. Animates Lumbering Falls. And he's just attacking here. He does have Dramoka's Command in hand, and that's is going to let him do some nice things here.
Yeah, Dramoka's Command particularly powerful with the hexproof Lumbering Falls because you don't have to worry about getting blown out by an instant speed removal spell.
And now he's going to double block. He says double block, goes to take the loyalty off. He's like, whoa, hold on. I'm not done. I'm going to put counter on Reflector Mage, fight. But Grasp of Darkness. Oops, I think the wrong. What happened to the. Oh, and he sacrificed an enchantment. I see.
Yeah, so Max targeted Reflector Mage with both sides of Dramoka's Command, put a counter on Reflector Mage, fight with Reflector Mage, and the Grasp of Darkness was just devastating.
Wow. And
now his life total gets cut in half, or even worse than that, by an 11-point attack from Gideon and friends.
Wow.
Oh, actually, he made Travis
sacrifice an enchantment. Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
At least he got something for his troubles. It's not exactly what he needs to save him, but getting that with Liliana could help him off the table. Could help him if the game does wind up going
I
wrong.
have more Oath of Lilianas, and Max activates Duskwatch Recruiter in response. Says, I need a moment to think about this.
So he has a Spell Queller in hand already, which can either counter the Oath of Liliana or just flash in to block and protect Max from dying this turn. And he's choosing between a second copy of Spell Queller or a Reflector Mage. Trying to plan out his comeback here, or if there's any sequence of events that can get him to safety.
Eric Lynch. Please make your way.
He's going to get a Spell Queller.
Eric Lynch.
Plays Spell Queller, counters the Oath. And now Travis is trying to figure out if he can just attack with everybody. What happens to his board, working it through.
Sunday Super Series players. Final standings after 8 rounds.
He's going to give himself a Gideon emblem here.
Nice. So that gives him 3 power attackers, which would be lethal if Max declines to block. If he double blocks, Travis will kill the Spell Queller in combat and get the Oath of Liliana back to finish off Duskwatch Recruiter.
Wow. This is a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation for Max Mick here. Does he chump block 1? Take 6, go
Yeah,
3?
I think his best chance is probably to chump block with Duskwatch Recruiter, and then he gets to attack the Gideon with the Spell Queller.
But instead, he double blocks the land, ends up losing both his creatures in the process, as Travis gets to play that Oath of Liliana out from under the Spell Queller when it dies.
Yeah, the good news is he at least got Shambling Van off the table, but still needs to produce 3
Max
blockers.
Mick extends the hand. Travis Wu is through to the finals here at Grand Prix Portland. Black-White control is not dead yet.
And we have a no Bant finals.
Wow, both band decks fall by the wayside here in the semifinals. Trying not to sound too excited about that, but woohoo! All right, so that's it here for the semifinals. Bringing in Marshall Sutcliffe and Jacob Van Lunen, and they are going to bring you the rest of the way through the finals.